Welcome back, everyone, to the last, but for sure not the least session of day one of our Solar Power Summit. On the weekend, I was enjoying cooking again since a very long time. I was really hesitating to use that example as it is obviously nourishing cliches. Generally, I'm not really a very great cook, but I have to say I was quite satisfied with the result, a really good lasagna. And normally I have to say that my husband is also cooking, so that made me very proud to have made my own lasagna. What it made special? A bundle of different and well-balanced ingredients brought together to form a culinary symphony. Okay, it was just a lasagna, but nevertheless. At work, it's no different. If there is no diversity in a team, no balance, the outcome can be flavorless. By now, it is proven through different studies that teams perform better if they are not homogeneous. So diversity adds new perspective, it adds innovation, it improves collaboration, and it improves the company's results. I mean, that's all not a secret to you, and it has not been put really into practice sufficiently. And that is why I am very proud to host the first Solar Power Summit Gender Champion Award. To create more visibility around diversity in a growing sector. And by the way, our 100% Renewable Europe study suggests that by 2050, the solar sector might employ as much as 4 million people in Europe. So diversity should ultimately help the solar sector to become even more successful. You might ask yourself why we did not call it Diversity Champion Award, as I'm talking about diversity all the time. It's not because we are a feminist movement, but just because women are the largest group in our society, which is still underrepresented. And this is in particular the case in STEM jobs, so technical jobs, and in management positions. I also have to say that the solar sector is not the worst in class. According to IRENA figures, women represent 32% of the jobs in the renewable energy sector worldwide, and that is compared to 22% of the traditional energy sectors. But still, in most cases, the balance is not reached. And I bet if you look at the company you are working for, you will agree. Obviously, there are exceptions, and you might be lucky. And these exceptions need to be put in the spotlight to inspire others. I would like to present to you 3 trailblazers today of diversity. They have been chosen by our award jury out of a number of other very good candidates. And these are remote energy, IKEA, and Sonetix. We will present to you in a minute. But first of all, and if you could go back one slide, first of all, I would like to present to you the jury, which is Jochen Hauf, who is Director Corporate Strategy, Energy Policy and Sustainability at BayWa, and by the way, also one of our vice presidents on the board of Solar Power Europe. We have Alison Finch. Alison is Vice President Marketing Europe at SolarEdge. And by the way, Alison also invented and initiated a great network called Solar Wonder Women. And last but not least, we have Alina Sander, researcher at the University of Louvain here in Belgium, and also consulting on gender balance issues and on diversity issues at large. Thanks very much for taking the time to be with us today and to pose the questions to the finalists. Before we start with our first candidate, I would like to ask you behind your screens to engage with us on social media, make noise about diversity, make noise about the candidates you feel should win, and use the hashtag #SolarPowerSummit and Gender Champion. So over now to the stars of this session, the 3 finalists. Every one of you has, as I explained before, 5 minutes to pitch to the audience what you're doing when it comes to diversity, when it comes to gender balance. And the jury will then have 10 minutes to dig a little bit deeper into what you're doing. And at the end of the 3 rounds, you, behind the screens, dear audience, you will have the opportunity to vote for your favorite candidate and to have a say on the winner. Let me start with remote energy then. Carol. Carol is a co-founder of Remote Energy. So Carol, you have developed a women's solar training taught by women. Tell us more.
Okay, thank you. Am I going to start with my slideshow right now? Okay, perfect. Okay, thank you, Alberga. We are very honored to be here as part of the finalists for this award. I am the co-founder of Remote Energy, and I'm here to talk about our women's program, which is building a gender-balanced solar industry. My background is as a solar electrician and installer, and I've spent the last 20 years teaching technical PV classes for both co-ed audiences and women's audience. So you can go to the next slide. The reason we have a women's program at all is because of the lack of women solar technicians on the job site. So Irina did a gender perspectives paper, which stated that only 28%, that women comprised of only 28% of technical renewable energy the workforce worldwide. And I would say on job sites that number even goes lower. So if you click again, we'll see a slide where Irina also shows the barriers for women. So whoever is doing the slideshow, if you click one more time, there's a graphic. Thank you. And these 4 barriers we really see in the field. So there's cultural and social norms, there's lack of gender sensitive training opportunities, lack of mentorship opportunities, and lack of skills. And so our women's program addresses all of these things. So if you go to the next slide. The first picture is a picture of a typical co-ed classroom. So you can see I'm in the front of the room, there's one other participant, and most of the people that come to trainings are men. If you click to the next slide, or to the next photo, this is a picture of a women-specific solar classroom. Women show up if they know that they will be with all other women. And we've seen this in metrics where one of the training programs I worked with, we were able to double the numbers of women coming to solar classes by offering women's only classes. And in another training program, which was a train the trainers, we were able to increase those numbers 5-fold. So if you go to the next slide, our whole women's program is based, we go with what's proven already. We have classes that are taught for women and they're taught by women. And so all of the solar educators, women that we're using are professionals in their field. They're solar installers, designers, etc. The next slide. The women that come to our classes are saying that they're more comfortable to learn a new technology and to use new tools. So whether it's on the left-hand side, this is a class I taught in India, they're learning how to use a pyranometer. On the right-hand side, this is a class that I taught with women from Niger, using how to use a power drill. People in these classes are saying that they feel less intimidated with a whole group of women in the room. Next slide. Part of the women's program, women are stating that they're making key relationships with other women in a traditionally male field. And that could be because women go out to the job site and they're the only woman, they come into this women's class and they're like, oh, I'm meeting other women that are in the same field as myself. Or in this photo, this is a train the trainers in Kenya. And it was women who were the only women from their department, whether it's an engineering department or an electrical trades department, they were meeting other colleagues that were in their field. Next slide. At first I'm talking about it's important to the students in the room so that they have a more comfortable environment to learn how to use tools. It's also important for us to build up a strong women technical instructor force. Because if you think about all of the technical colleges that are out there, if the people in front of the room are only men, there's no mentorship or role models that are being created. So this is a class that we did with Indigenous communities in the US. And we find it with all of our technical training programs, we insist that there's women trainers in front of the room. They become the role models for that next future generation, so that they say, oh, this is a career that I could do. Next slide. This is the last slide, is that with all of the training programs that we have, we know that we have to couple that with mentorship and job placement. So that's that next step after training. So on the left-hand side, this could look like, this is an all-female team out of Kenya, that they bring women onto the job site so that they get hands-on skills after training. Or on the right-hand side, this is a pilot that we did with the tradeswomen group in the US, so that it's creating a pathway for renewable energy to go into a traditionally male field. And so the next slide is just my closing slide that says that we are really happy that we were able to share a little bit about what we do. And we look forward to collaborating with others in order to build a gender balanced solar industry. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Carol. Perfectly in time within your 5 minutes. So 10 minutes of questions. Okay. Who wants to go first? Alina, can I invite you first?
Yes, sure. Thank you, Carol. That was really interesting. And of course, I also read your application, which I very much appreciated because I also work in the field of development and I work with women. And so I know about the challenges of getting to women and yeah, working with them, especially in these technical fields. And actually, I have a question for you because I would like to know more about the personal story behind remote energy. So what motivated you to especially invest in the women's program? How did you come up with the idea? And maybe what were your biggest challenges in setting up the program?
Okay. Well, I would say personally, my motivation was being one of the only women on a job site. So when I started as a solar electrician and a solar installer, I was the only woman. And when I went to solar conferences, there were very few women at the solar conferences. And I really wanted to change that dynamic. And that's what started me teaching women's classes 20 years ago. And here in the US, and then I moved internationally, remote energy was founded and started because we wanted to actually work with underrepresented communities that didn't have access to high-level solar training courses. And then within that, we also have our women's program, so that it's addressing getting women leaders to train others in their community, etc. So that's the inception of that. And I would say that probably our biggest challenge is the fact that because we're working with underrepresented communities, and then women within that who are lower income earners than men, it's a challenge for them to be able to pay for a class. I mean, we are a nonprofit, so what we do is we try to get a lot of donations, and we offer our classes with a lot of scholarships, of course. So that we can eliminate that barrier, and we do a lot of grant writing to eliminate that barrier. But that's definitely one of the challenges there. I don't know if I should stop there because we're under time. I could go on.
Yeah, maybe I would like to give the possibility to Alison to also ask a question. And if there's still time, you can continue elaborating, Carol.
Okay.
Yeah, I absolutely love what you're doing, Carol, and unashamedly promoting to have these all-women sessions, which I know can make some people feel uncomfortable. It's like, why do you need an all-women session? And you mentioned a little bit like the women were saying that they feel more comfortable and less intimidated. And I think when you say things like this, I think people can have the impression that perhaps women are softer and need a more gentle situation. But I think the way I switch this round is you imagine that the world was all built with, all women running solar, and the single man had to come into those sessions. I think they probably feel uncomfortable and intimidated as well. So, what's your opinion on the psychology of this in terms of, do you think we need to get more businesses to wake up and allow these spaces for all women to be together? because men naturally in the environment get to just be with all men because there's just so many of them, and women just don't get that. So do you think we need to encourage it more, like outside of your company, encourage big corporations to do it as well?
Absolutely, I do. It's just what I have seen. When there's only a few women in the room, they're less likely to ask their questions. I've seen tools being taken out of their hands when they aren't using it correctly, etc. That dynamic is eliminated if we have an all-women's class. I do think that you're correct, that whoever is kind of the isolated person would feel more uncomfortable. So I think that until there's more parity, I think that having all women's classes is really important. And I would say that there's some things that I've seen happen with having women, an all-women team go and do something. For example, in Kenya, an all-women's installation team, they go to schools and install systems on schools. Well, all the little girls see these women installing, and they point at them and they say, I want to be like you. How can I be like you? What school did you go to be able to do this? It is a game changer when children and young girls see women do that work. And then, if a woman in Seller goes to a maternal health clinic, all of the pregnant women at that facility and the female midwives are cheering that woman on because they're saying, wow, we needed lights and a woman came and did that. It changes. People are not used to seeing this. It's not the cultural norm yet. And so there is some power in having all women teams do things together so that it's more comfortable. That does not mean that all of the installations have to be all women, but there's some examples of how shifting that can be for people to experience that.
Yeah, and I think we all do love to learn of people that we can relate to the most. So like you say, to get your instructors to be women as well, or to get women on the roof for the children to see, it's all stuff that will encourage us to get the gender balance in the future, I think. So it needs that special attention. Yeah.
One more thing to add to that is I had this woman in a class of mine in the early 2000s, and she became this, installer, very large systems, etc. And she looks back at that time and she said, if there would have been one male instructor with you when we did our installation, I would have credited that installation to having that one man in the room. Because it was all female instructed, I went, oh, women can do this on their own. And I was able to make that leap that I can do that on my own. So I really think that having all women instructors is very important as well.
It's very commendable. I like it.
Thank you.
I think we have still time for one short question. Who still feels the need to ask something?
But the only, I don't know if it's a question, it's more a request. Why don't you come to Germany, please? we have a shortage of solar installers, male or female, period, right? And I'm sure it's not only Germany, it's a European problem. And I think tapping into the female technical potential would be a great way. So is that a conscious, obviously it's a conscious choice that you're doing development work in developing countries as well, but are you aware, or is there any plan to broaden this to also the so-called developed countries who have a clear deficiency in this respect as well?
Great question. I think that this can be expanded and it should be expanded in all ways. It's a very easy thing to be able to do and to scale up and to just offer that space so that more women come and enter into the industry. I think that, both on looking at scholarships for women to take classes, having the technical college that can house the hands-on portion and has the will to be able to offer women's only classes, and then to meet up with industry people who say, yes, I want my company to have women, to have more women hired, and so we're going to link up with this training center to offer jobs. I think that we should be doing that everywhere.
Thanks a lot, Carol.
You're
So
welcome.
we've used our 15 minutes. I would like to present to you now Joanna Torp, who is working for Sonetix. She's head of talent and acquisition and development at Sonetix. Joanna, your strategy on equity at Sonetix and diversity and inclusion has many different facets and already paid off, I understand. So you went from 27% to 35% of women at Sonetix. Happy to learn more and looking forward to your insights.
Brilliant. Thank you, Olga. I think we're going to start with a video, actually, if we can play that.
At Sonetix, we believe diversity includes everyone.
全員が均等な機会を与えられる環境を
Todos saben que pertenecen y que pueden desempeñar un papel importante para desarrollar todo su potencial dentro de nuestro equipo.
Wir fordern uns ständig selbst heraus, um sicherzustellen, dass Vielfalt und Inklusion ein natürlicher Bestandteil dessen sind, wie wir denken.
私たちの行動、私たちの取り組み
We've embedded in our culture a habit of listening to one another,
Se sensibiliser et sensibiliser les autres aux questions qui affectent les membres de notre équipe.
E compiere quei cambiamenti che ci permettono di essere un'ottima azienda in cui lavorare.
Y te invitamos a que formes parte de ello.
diversity is about everyone. Inclusion is for everyone.
I hope it came through with the sound, so some of it. But for those of you who don't know Kinetics, we are a developer, builder. We own and operate our assets for the long term. We have about 4 gigawatt controlled capacity today. We're 11 years old, but we are 400 strong and growing rapidly. We added 100 people last year, many of which joined us during the pandemic. We're very proud of what we do, but also it's so important to us how we do it. I've included on this slide our values. Our purpose is to harness the power of the sun to build a bright future. And that is built upon our shared values and a very strong culture that values everyone's contribution, includes everyone, works to make sure we are a fair workplace so that everyone can realise their full potential. So we can move on to the next slide. I can tell you a little bit about what we've been working on. We were determined to make equity and diversity business as usual, so it wasn't just a strategic initiative for this year or next year. And to do that, we stepped back and went root and branch. We looked at our attraction, development, and who we promote, and how we retain people. In the attraction, we challenged ourselves, every job role, what were the requirements? Then every advert is run through a gender decoder piece of software to make sure that we are inviting the widest possible audience. We've challenged ourselves where we advertise our roles. We have an extensive training program for all managers. We have gender balanced shortlists and also an extensive interview process which ensures that people have a diverse experience. This year we've launched an internships program. We have 10 people have joined us from underrepresented groups, and that's about giving people that important first start in the solar sector. And also we've looked where we could sponsor and support other initiatives and push our efforts outwards, such as the support we gave to the International Women in Engineering Day. In terms of develop and promote, salary parity, progression, leadership opportunities have been fundamental to that. We've stepped back and looked at all our policies and practices. We've launched a mentoring program to ensure that women are getting that airspace and support. We've ensured that there is a training program around that. We've very deliberately put a women's champion on every construction project. And again, to push outwards, we've used our ESG and sustainability platform, where fairness and transparency is very important to us, to ensure that we are using our supply chain to promote our values as well. In terms of our inclusive culture, everybody in the business has been through My Part to Play. It's a training to ensure that everyone knows that diversity and inclusion is about everyone. We have put in place a governance process so that we have EDI champions in each and every one of our countries, so that anyone in our team has a voice. We set up an employee resource network. We call them one team work groups after our values, and the Sonetix Women's Alliance, and also our returning to leave group are really active with the programs that they're bringing external speakers in, but also ensuring everyone in the business has space to talk about their experiences and to challenge our ways of working. As part of that policy review, we've this year upgraded our parental leave for both maternity and paternity. And
your 5 minutes are almost over, Joanna.
Okay, and we've also launched a new flexible working approach. If we go on to the next slide. I couldn't leave without bringing this one to us. So Sonetix Atacama Solar came online earlier this year. It's in the remote north part of Chile, and we were delighted that through an intentional gender action plan, we were able to bring 47 women into the construction workforce at the height of construction, which was exceptional given the employment of women full stop in the area, let alone on this sort of project. And it drew the attention of the President and the Energy Minister. And my final slide. Which is the punchline. So if we go on to the next slide, I'll be able to show you how our results are going. Thank you. Oh, and one back. We can see there our journey of travel. So the orange bars are the 2019 data, going through to year to date, 2021. And hopefully you can see the difference we are making. We're trying to move the needle. We're having some success. So we've gone from 30% of the company being women, now 37%. And if we look purely at our women new hires, you can see a very significant jump there from 30% to 52%. And I just wanted to pick out those difficult to reach, those pinch points: women in operations, which is asset management, O&M, engineering, construction, and the growth that we've had there. And also the growth in our M&A and BD teams as well. So we are increasing the amount of women across the business, not just in perhaps finance or some of the traditionally more gender balanced sectors. It's a journey, it's work in progress. We have plans this year to create EDI scorecards in each of our countries because it's a very different picture. Also to keep pushing outwards, share, and thank you for giving us the opportunity today, and to look at intersectionality. So where does gender meet ethnicity and the impact of that? Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Joanna. Jochen, the first question goes to you.
Thanks for the honor. Thank you for the presentation, Joanna. Well, one thing you mentioned, the cultural or the champions in every country. So, and I know that you're active in several continents as well. I mean, you have culturally diverse countries or different countries like Japan, Chile, and Italy in the mix. Also, South Africa. I saw. How do you manage this? You know, the gender topic across these very different cultural backgrounds? Do you need to vary the approach, or is that easily or uniformly, workable with the approach you have described?
I think the answer is both in many ways. So there is some, it's local, I suppose. There are some issues that span the entire organisation and we can take a global approach, but there are also very much local variations. And we've been thinking quite hard to take account of those. So the EDI champions are empowered locally anyway. They have the budget, they have access to our senior leadership, and they come together under the governance structure on a monthly basis to share best practice, share their challenges. But that's why we've developed the EDI scorecards per country, because when we talk about underrepresentation, actually that varies by country quite widely as well. So there is opportunities to share and amplify, but also there are some unique challenges. For example, in Japan, gender, you're looking at sort of not quite single figures, but very, very low percentages in the workplace, and also in Chile, which is different in different sectors, and also to what we see in Europe.
Thank you.
Alina, any questions?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Joanna, for the presentation and also for your application, which I found very impressive. And I think what set you apart was that, well, together with all the other finalists who are here, is that it seemed like diversity and gender inclusion is not just a box that you want to tick, but it's really something that you believe in. And I have a question, of course, and it's about the pandemic. And it's also about myself, because I'm a mother of a 3-year-old, and I found it super difficult in the past year to, well, combine my career with my personal life, especially during lockdowns when kindergartens were closed. And I would like to know how you at Sonetix supported maybe not just mothers, but parents in general during that time.
Thank you. It's such an important question, isn't it? Because it's been a long 15 months for many colleagues, and our team have had different severity of lockdowns at different times across the last year. Colleagues in Chile, for example, their children went to school 10 days in the last year, which is an incredible achievement. So we've been very much aware of that. We have a methodology we call listen, educate and implement. So the listening is regular wellbeing pulse surveys. How are you? And there we look at people's mental health, emotional health, physical health, anxiousness, and how connected they feel to their colleagues. We've had a series of initiatives. I think we set up at the Kinetics gym, and we had live gym sessions 3 times a day, actually, at the peak of the pandemic, covering our different time zones, that people could exercise because some colleagues couldn't leave their house. Our one team value has been really strong. Teams have worked very hard with each other. People have worked schedules that suited them, so that they could balance the childcare with that. It became very clear that people were looking for certainty and clarity early. So we've come out very early with what our hybrid working will be when we go back. We offered an extensive round of psychological counselling. Everybody in the business had at least 2 calls, completely confidential, from psychologists, just to check in on how they were. We have ongoing support for anyone who would like it, confidentially. We've had wellbeing webinars for parents. We've invited partners and families to those. We've had a series of inspirational speakers. We've used our educational resources to deliver classes to children and our team's children. So it, as well as pizza making, cocktail evenings, murder mysteries, regular coffee mornings. And we've thought very carefully about the people who have joined us as well during this period, and put in place buddy systems, just to be aware that it's a different experience to be a new joiner and a parent or a carer, as well as an established team player, when actually you might not have met any of your colleagues or been into an office yet. So it's an ongoing process, and we keep listening, educating and implementing as we go through that cycle.
Wow, you're not stopping in your response, Joanna. Very impressive.
What will you do when the pandemic is over?
We have time for one last very short question. Who wants to ask it?
Should I ask a very short one
Alison.
then? I also just like the opportunity today, because obviously we've read all of the entries for all 3 candidates, and all were excellent and worthy of this place. But I have to say that the number of initiatives that you're taking in Sonetix at the moment is staggering. And by the time I'd finished reading the application, I genuinely thought I'd quite like to work there. It's, you know, it is impressive, and we've just all heard you ramble off things that I can't remember them all, but it just it's super exciting, because I know it's not easy to do any initiative in a business that's, you know, focused on profit. So absolute well done for what you're doing. And my very simple question is, and it's probably when you mentioned about Japan and the challenges there, and I don't mean specifically for them, but in some of the cultures where perhaps women do generally have more of a struggle on finding a voice, what do you think is the single thing that you're doing in Sonetix that really helps women in critical situations, in power meetings where decisions are being made, to feel they can have a voice if they're not, you know, on balance, the majority within the room? So if there's just 2 women and 10 men, what gives them the voice when they're in Sonetix?
And if you could have a very short answer, that would be great.
Oh, the temptations. I'm passionate about this topic. It's so important. Is it training? Yes. Is it having the right culture? Yes. Is it ensuring that everyone in that room knows that everyone has a voice? Yes. So I think if I'm only allowed one thing, I would say keeping our strong culture, make sure it's an inclusive culture. Everyone knows they have a part to play. Everyone has a voice in that room.
Okay, thanks very much, Joanna. And our last, but for sure not least, presentation is from Sine Antworskov-Krag. So I hope I pronounced your name correctly, Head of Development at IKEA Clean Energy Services. Sine, IKEA's goal is a very impressive one, having a 50-50 gender balance in all different roles, board, technical jobs, and so really all kind of jobs within IKEA within a couple of months, basically, in 2022. Where are you now, and how are you going to get there? The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. And I would like to start by saying also I'm very, very honored and pleased to be here today to represent the whole IKEA Clean Energy team in IKEA Inca, and very impressed with all the presentations so far. I would like to take a little different angle, a personal angle to start with in the presentation here. And I would like to start by talking about dreams. Because gender equality is really about equal rights and opportunities to be who you are, no matter if you're born male or female. And from my personal experience or life, when I was a little girl, my dream was to one day be able to play basketball in the big arena in the US. And I realized that dream, but looking back, I only realized it because I was given and granted the opportunity through the stakeholders around me to be seen and heard, and be provided that chance to fulfill my dream. And now when I look into where I am today and what my dream is today, I think I can speak on many of us with a dream that I have, and it is to see a world that is completely powered by renewable energy, because it's so important for humanity, and it is the fight of our generation to take. And it's a huge dream, and it takes all of us to pull it through. So if you take next slide. That goes really well in hand with what we do in IKEA and the vision of IKEA. I think most of you know IKEA, but our overarching mission is to create better life at home for the many people. And really now, having been with IKEA for the past 5 years, I've really felt the strength of this vision of IKEA and the values that IKEA have. And been working in IKEA, I can truly say that I'm convinced that an equal gender balance is the right way and the winning formula to achieve dreams, whether that be in one direction or another. So if you take the next slide. And in IKEA, we see equality as a human right. And therefore, it is reflected in all our values, in everything that we do. And we believe that the individual have the right to be treated fairly and with the opportunities. And therefore, we have a number of different guidelines and regulations. We have a code of conduct that supports us in the work that we have for equality. And we also have a rule of equality that is to ensure that our workspace is free of gender discrimination, harassment, and hostility towards achieving dreams and opportunities. That may be terrifying, and we've seen it with what Carol also presented today. It can be quite terrifying to step into a male's world. And that is what we're trying to address by putting in those structures for us on a daily basis. If you next slide, please. So concretely, we have three movements that we work with within IKEA. One is our co-workers, and here I am very happy to say that yes, we have achieved a 50-50 gender equality workforce through the entire IKEA community. We still have some work to do when it comes to the top level management layers, and that is what we're working towards now going forward. But it is a working reality throughout IKEA. And when it then comes to our business, we also know and have seen that doing or creating equal and fair teams and equal gender balanced teams is really good business. It brings in the diversity that strengthens the dynamics in the team and the creativity in the team to provide better business results. And then the third part is about society. We do take very serious measures to be the leader that we know we are when we reach the number of people that we have access to in our daily work. So we work across with many different societies and new thinkers around how to continuously provide and ensure and advocate for equal rights throughout the society. So next slide, please. And then when I come to the result about the dream coming true, I think being what we do and what we do in IKEA is very new to IKEA. What we're doing is building up a complete new value stream within IKEA, providing clean energy services to our customers in IKEA. And we are now in 13 markets where there are clean energy offers. And last year we improved our sales revenue by 90%. And we have done that with a 50-50 gender balanced team. And even when we talk about our clean energy management team, we have 60% female representation as we speak. So within IKEA, I think we're given the frames to excel.
Getting to the end of the 5 minutes, Sine, just a reminder.
Yeah, and I think this is actually my last slide. So we have, with this team, I think we have proven that an equal world is a better world for all. So thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Sine. So who wants to ask the first question? Can I ask maybe Alison?
Hi, Sine. It's everyone, as you say, knows IKEA, and you're like the big Goliath, aren't you? I suppose compared to remote energy. And I love the fact that we've got 3 companies here competing against each other, from a very small setup to what we all know as a gigantic, famous setup. I was in IKEA this weekend. I've admitted it already, and I'm sure there's probably somebody else who's listening to this that has as well. So I think that the question I'd really like to ask you, I mean, because I think none of us are doubting that you're trailblazing and good for you, and we're glad that you exist in so many ways, and IKEA helps the world. So what my question will be is, what's IKEA's advice, having gone this far, to all of those corporations, of which there are a vast number, that have CEOs that are men who have not really got the point? And so they're talking about it perhaps, and they may have a policy, but the numbers aren't shifting. What do you think the women, the men, the ones that are passionate within that company, what advice would you give to people in those corporations on how to actually follow what IKEA has done and really mean it and get that balance in place?
Well, that's a really good question. And I think it starts with values, to set in and be aware of the right values within the root of the company, and then really walk the talk and not just the talking stay on the paper. And I think awareness is the first step. Really to be aware of the lock-ins that automatically is in place when you have an industry that is by default maybe very male dominated. And then I think there's a lot of built-in biases and steps to inclusion that needs to be catered for throughout the different steps within those companies, in order to empower and create the path and create that support that the female leaders need to be granted that opportunity. So really coming back at equal opportunities, to try to look at the structures, try to look at bringing it into every meeting, every room that you're in, be aware of also social activities that are happening, that you make sure that it's inclusive. And by doing that, I think step by step, you can build the right awareness that then makes it possible for female representation through maybe a little bit of locked industry. And then I think get inspired really by female heroes and the pandemic. I think in terms of some of the ways that the countries have been managed going through the pandemic. I think there's a lot of inspiration to be found in terms of female leadership.
Jochen, a question from you?
Sure, yeah, and building on that as to advice to other companies, but I mean, you have quite a big muscle as a customer, and you have a big supply chain, right? That I know you're leveraging already if it comes to Scope 3 emissions and the energy supply of IKEA. How does that work with gender balance? Is that the next level for your supply chain, that to qualify to sell wood to IKEA, there needs to be a female content in there, or is that something that's in the works? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think we have actually a really good, what we call IWay, is IKEA way of working standard that guides us in our values across the whole value chain that we as IKEA have our foundation. But you're absolutely right. And we actually work with our partners and with our suppliers to enable the transformation, not just by IKEA, but with everybody that works with us in the supply chain. So we have a very concrete example of actually lockdown where we meet the customers in our home deliveries, and if we came to the homes in some markets with males, we weren't granted in because it was the females that were at home. So maybe or by including female employees in that leg, we could actually unlock opportunities in many more places that we wouldn't have otherwise. So it proves really, really strong to have gender equality throughout our whole supply chain in everything what we do. But we continue to have a work still ahead of us because yes, there's lots of work to be done in this area, and we'd like to inspire by walking the talk and then get everybody with us, which includes our suppliers.
Alina, a last short question from you or from anyone else who wants to still ask something? Alina, do you want to ask one question, or shall I give it to someone else?
You can give it to someone else, actually.
Okay, Alison or Jochen, if you still have a question. Otherwise,
I could just add, a similar question that I asked Joanna, the cultural differences I'm interested in. How, 50-50 across all, I looked it up, 52 countries you're in, including Saudi Arabia. Seriously? I mean, how do you balance this and how do you work with the mix here?
Yeah, I think we have to take market by market in terms of how we ensure and how we work with the culture that we're in to adhere to working with and in dialogue and in alignment, I would say, with the different cultural settings that we're in. I'm not sure about Saudi Arabia, a specific country, how we actually really deal with it in Saudi Arabia. I can just say that the strength of the IKEA value is embedded in everything that we want to do across all our markets. And that's the stepping stone. And then it's up to each country and each market to determine how do we tackle inequalities of any kind. And we face it not just in Saudi Arabia, we face it also in Russia, we face it in Israel, we face it in many places of different kinds. And that creativity of how to take the right steps is granted locally, but rooted in the same values.
Okay, great. So it is now your turn at your screens to vote for one of these three very excellent candidates. Just as a reminder, once again, we had Carol Weiss from Remote Energy, Joanna Torpe from Sonetix, and Ensine, and I'm not repeating your last name because I will probably fail, from IKEA. So we are going to show you how you can express who should be the winner, which is the slide you see now. You have to go to slido.do and enter the code SolarPower Summit 2021 and very simply vote for one of the three candidates. We will give you now 3 minutes to cast your vote. So please go to slido, sli.do, use the hashtag SolarPower Summit 2021 and cast your vote. While you are invited to cast your vote and the SolarPower Europe team is gathering the votes in the background, I would like to ask you, while you're not voting, to engage with us on social media using the hashtag SolarPower Summit and Gender Champion in order to make noise about the candidate which you think should be the winner and make noise around diversity in general. Let me share with you also what the prize is for the winner. In the meanwhile, the candidates already know because they have been obviously reading what we put on our homepage. So it is all about providing more visibility to the topic of diversity and also the best performer to inspire others. We will have the winner featured, therefore, in an interview in our monthly newsletter, going out to more than 18,000 subscribers. But it is not only about the winners, so as we do think that all the finalists are doing a great job, not just have been doing, but are doing a great job. For all the finalists, we are proposing a Q&A block on our webpage. And we will also have all of them featured on our webpage for the next couple of months. And for sure, I can assure you, we will not miss any opportunity throughout the whole next year to put all of these examples in the spotlight. So we have another 1 minute left for you to cast the vote. So we want to make sure that as many votes as possible can be cast. So we've given you three minutes. And I'm waiting for the remaining couple of seconds. Maybe in the meanwhile, I could still ask the jury a question. As you've been posing questions, a question to you, maybe. What is the single most important action from your perspective to provide for more diversity in companies? Some very quick answers. The single most important action. Alison, can I start with you?
Sure, I'll be slightly controversial. I've mentioned this already, but I think it's all about giving those people, minorities, a voice. So I don't like talking about equality. I like to talk about empowering people and encourage women in particular to be slightly more aggressive. So it's a word that we feel like we shouldn't mention, but I think sometimes we just need to accept the fact that we have to push a little. So it's about power.
About power, Jochen?
I would say it's a bit to get over especially in the renewable sector and in solar, we always think we're good because we're green, we're saving the world. All of us have been working in the spirit of sustainability, basically, in our careers, or many of us, and so that breeds a certain complacency. We don't even think that it's us that have to improve something, just because we're so used of being good. And I think realizing that even though we're green, we still need to go beyond carbon, as I said before. That's why it's the motto with us, and work on a couple of the things where we're not so good, and be frank about that. Honesty comes first, I think.
Green doesn't mean to be diversified. Alena?
Yes, I actually would like companies to tackle more sensitive questions like sexism, like racism, and not just dance around these buzzwords, diversity, equality, but really like get into the topics that are more painful, because I think that these are the topics that we need to really talk about. Yeah, and from a feminist perspective, and then maybe even consider being feminist and being feminist openly.
Thanks. I'm looking at my team to see whether we already have the results available. Maybe in the meanwhile, I can still tell you that at SolarPower Europe, we have a perfect gender balance, where I think we are 50-50. But also here, I have to say, we still have to work very hard. For example, when it comes to our board, Jochen, maybe we can increase the gender balance in our board going forward.
The one thing I can't help with personally.
we are happy to have you on the board in any way. So I'm looking at my team to see. Okay, we have a winner, and the winner is Sonetix. Congratulations. So I would love to have a lot of clapping hands bringing to you. Yeah, well, I'm the only one, unfortunately. Congratulations, Joanna.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, everyone. Absolutely thrilled. I'm one person. It's the Kinetics One team who have won this, and they'll all be absolutely thrilled. So thank you. But how wonderful to be in this session, to hear the other stories, and let's all go out and make sure it's not just 3 stories, but it's 30 and it's 300 and it's 3,000. But thank you so much.
Thank you, and thanks also to all the other finalists. It was really great having you. You're all inspiring, and we will be happy to promote you as a winner, obviously, Joanna, Sonetix, in the next couple of months, but also Carol and Signe, because you're all doing a great job, and we're very happy to have more people learn about what you're doing and be inspired by your activities. Thanks very much. So for me, I want to also thank the jury very much for taking the time, digging into all the applications and selecting the finalists, posing the questions, being with us today. Thanks very much for joining us. And thanks to all of the finalists. Tomorrow and on Wednesday, we will be continuing to deep dive on driving sustainable change at our SolarPower Summit. So tomorrow on day 2, we would love to see you back in our session on European solar manufacturing. And later tomorrow, we will hear more about the synergies between solar and agriculture, where we will also be very proudly presenting our Agri-Solar best practice guidelines. We will also have a chat with the Greek energy minister, Skrekas, about Greece and how Greece is seizing the opportunities of solar. And in the afternoon, I will be discussing with thought leaders how we can support competitiveness of our European business. Obviously, we cannot have a solar power summit without talking about the elephant in the room, which is hydrogen, and the role solar can play in hydrogen. And we will finish the day tomorrow with an award which has already a tradition at SolarPower Europe and at the SolarPower Summit, which is the Startup Award. So I would really hope that you can join us again to cast your votes tomorrow also on the Startup Awards. And as your health and well-being is dear to our hearts, we will bring wellness sessions throughout the next days. If you want to have some further inspiration on sustainability or deeper knowledge of national solar markets, please watch our videos on the platform. For now, have a very good evening and see you back tomorrow.